You know, all these different AIs we're building, like ChatGPT, Midjourney, all of them, have you ever stopped to wonder if they're all secretly starting to think alike? It's a pretty wild question, and it turns out it's not so crazy. We're about to dive into some amazing new research that suggests a deep convergence is happening right under the hood, and it's changing everything we thought we knew about how AIs see the world.
So this is the central mystery we're going to try to solve today. Are all these AIs built by different people with different data for totally different jobs, are they all secretly learning to use the exact same mental playbook? We're going to treat this like a detective story, okay? We'll follow the clues that researchers have been piecing together about the inner workings of the AI mind.
And look, this isn't just a feeling or some random coincidence. We're seeing AI systems become more and more similar across the board, not just in what they can do, but in their fundamental architecture, how they're actually built. It's a huge trend, and it hints at something much deeper is going on.
Now, to crack this case, we first have to get our heads around a really important concept: how an AI actually perceives the world. Because, it's not looking at pixels or reading letters like we do. It's doing something way more abstract and way more powerful. And it all comes down to this idea called latent space.
Okay, so this is the key. An AI builds this internal, high-dimensional map of reality. That's its latent space. And on this map, it doesn't just store information, it organizes it by meaning. So things that are conceptually similar, like dog and puppy, get placed right next to each other. But things that are totally unrelated, like dog and galaxy, are miles apart. It's the AI's own internal blueprint for how the world works.
And this is where it gets really cool. On this map, the directions and the distances between concepts actually mean something. So, for example, the relationship from man to woman can be thought of as an arrow, a vector. Well, guess what? That arrow is almost identical to the one that takes you from king to queen. The AI hasn't just learned words, it's learned the geometry of the relationships between them. This is its mental model of reality. All right, you with me? Now that we understand how these AIs build their internal maps, we can finally pull back the curtain on the big theory that explains why all their maps are starting to look the same. And trust me, it has an awesome name that goes all the way back to ancient Greece.
This image just nails the core idea. The AI never gets to see the real world, in this case, the actual sphere and cone. It only ever sees these different projections of it. An image from one angle, a text description from another. But here's the kicker. Because all these different bits of data are just shadows of the exact same underlying thing, any AI that tries to make sense of them is forced, eventually, to model that one single source of truth.
And here it is, straight from the researchers themselves. This is the formal hypothesis. It doesn't matter what data you use, or what you're training the AI to do, or even what sense it's using, like sight or language. They are all converging. They're all building a similar statistical picture of the one reality that created all of our data in the first place.
And that is why they call it the Platonic Representation Hypothesis. It's a perfect parallel to Plato's famous allegory of the cave. The images and text we feed our AIs, they're like the flickering shadows on the cave wall. But the AIs aren't just memorizing the shadows anymore. They're starting to figure out what the true objects, the Platonic forms, are that are casting them.
Okay, so it's a beautiful theory, right? But is it actually true? Any good hypothesis needs cold, hard evidence. So now, let's follow the breadcrumbs and look at the clues the researchers actually found to back this whole thing up.
Okay, this is just so cool. Check this out. On the left, models are basically ranked by how good they are at vision tasks. On the right, we're looking at how similar their internal maps are. Now, see that tight little blue cluster? Those are all the best performing models. They have all converged on an almost identical way of seeing the world. But the weaker models, the orange and red ones, they're scattered all over the place. It's like that old saying, all good AIs are alike, every bad AI is bad in its own unique way.
And get this, it's not just happening within a single sense, like vision. It's happening across them. Just look at this trend line. It's so clear. What this shows is that as language models get better and better at their job, their internal maps become more and more similar to the maps created by the best vision models. They're both zeroing in on a reality that isn't just about images or words, but something more fundamental that unites both.
And the evidence just keeps piling up. Researchers found they can literally take chunks of two totally different AIs and stitch them together, and the new hybrid model just works. That should be impossible unless they learned a similar internal language. They've also found what they call Rosetta neurons, single neurons that fire for the exact same concept like a cat, in completely different AI models. And maybe the most mind-blowing thing of all, these AI maps are starting to look more and more like how our own brains organize information.
Okay, so the evidence is pretty overwhelming. This convergence thing is real.
But the big question is, why? What invisible force is pushing all of these completely separate AI systems toward the exact same internal map of the world?
Well, the researchers think there are three main pressures at play. First, the more jobs you ask an AI to do, the fewer possible correct maps of the world actually work. Second, bigger models just have more horsepower, giving them a better shot at finding that one optimal mat. And third, neural networks just seem to have this built-in bias towards simplicity, kind of like Occam's razor, that pushes them to find the simplest, most elegant explanation for all the data they see.
All right, so what? Who cares if all these AIs are building the same internal map? Well, it turns out this isn't just some academic thought experiment. It has some really powerful real-world consequences for how well these things actually work. The research found a direct, unmistakable link. The more a model's internal map lines up with this Platonic ideal, the better it is at a whole bunch of different jobs. This convergence isn't just a weird side effect of training. It actually seems to be a key ingredient for making AIs truly competent. And this right here, this chart brings it all home. It shows an incredibly clear correlation. Along the bottom, you have how much a language model's map agrees with the vision model's map, and up the side, you have its score on a common sense test. The relationship is just undeniable. The more a language AI thinks like a vision AI, the more common sense it has. It's a huge hint that true human-like understanding requires this single, unified map of reality.
And so that leaves us with one final, absolutely massive question to chew on. If our best AIs are all, on their own, discovering and converging on a single, optimal map of reality, a map that's looking more and more like the one in our own heads, what does that mean for the future? Are we watching the birth of not just an artificial intelligence, but an artificial consensus reality? And the biggest question of all, will that reality, in the end, look just like our own? That is something to think about.